So please welcome Mr. Jim Clarke.
How's this? This is good. Good morning. I'm Jim Clarke. 2 years ago, as a first-time council candidate, I was unknown to many of you and untested by most. Yet you saw something in my background and endorsed me. Thank you for doing so, and I hope I can earn your endorsement again. I learned then from Steve Rose that 65% of city revenues are derived from businesses. If we don't have viable businesses, we can't fund the city services our residents have come to expect. So I've listened to your concerns and tried to be supportive. Arguably, I've been the most active council member with the Chamber as a regular attendee at Chamber events and ribbon cuttings because it gives me a chance to listen to you. I serve on the city's Economic Development Subcommittee and have worked closely with the Chamber on addressing issues facing our business community. I'm a big supporter of projects like the Art District and the East End, the creation of Culver Village on Sepulveda, and the further improvements on West Washington. If re-elected, I pledge to continue to stay involved with the Chamber and to be open to your suggestions.
Thank you. The first question, which you've already received, is what does the city need to do to implement an aggressive economic development?
Thank you. With redevelopment, we had a very aggressive economic development program. I mean, just look around at the transformation of Culver City. But due to budget belt tightening, we've also faced a loss of staff in our community development department. And as a result, Saul and his staff have primarily focused on trying to save our redevelopment projects from the state, which is a full-time effort, believe me. As such, we have had to scale back on economic development within the city. We've been fortunate to have several factors that have aided in our recent economic development activity. Those include the opening of the Expo line, the traffic congestion on the west side due to the 405 construction that's going on, the relatively low cost of commercial rents, and the even lower relative cost of housing, and the influx of creative startups which attract other creative startups to our city. But we can't just rely on good luck. We need to be proactive in branding and promoting Culver City. Andy Wiseman and I serve on the city's Economic Development Subcommittee, and we have developed an informal working relationship with the Chamber's Economic Development Task Force over many good evening meals, and on looking at ways to promote economic development, not only for new businesses, but existing ones. We've convened meetings with business owners in the Hayden Track and downtown, West Washington and Fox Hills to explore what they need, because the easiest way to do economic development is to enhance our existing businesses. It is apparent, and we all know this, that parking is the #1 issue facing Culver City and facing economic development. So city staff is looking for creative ways to encourage new parking. The city has also developed a draft economic development plan, which I encourage you to read and comment on. It's a good start. The #1 objective within the plan is to collaborate with business owners and the Chamber of Commerce in putting together a viable economic development plan. So we want to work with it. I also support efforts of the city to continue to streamline the permitting process for new projects and those that have been that involve having our departments work more closely together. We've instituted an expedited permitting process on a case-by-case basis. One of the recent examples is Dr. Dre Beats and bringing his project in Culver City that we've been able to work on and expedite. I want us to continue to pursue online permitting. We're behind on that. We need to do more, particularly, and then part of it is just the availability of IT staff to work on it. We'd like to be able to have building permits to accept signatures online. We need to work on that as well. I'd also like to see us form a joint economic development corporation funded in part by the city and in part by the Chamber and its members to be proactive in our economic development activities. And I'd like to see some portion of the TOT used for that purpose. But I want to be mindful as we undertake economic development that it's not just development for development's sake. That it adds to the brand of what we want Culver City to become, and it protects the integrity of our neighborhoods and the quality of life of our residents and how we expect.
Next question is, the city is facing both federal and state mandated expenses in the near future. including the funding of CalPERS obligations and requirements for cleaning up stormwater runoff. Where do you see cuts that can be made or revenue raised to meet these requirements?
Good question, too. Passage of the half-cent sales tax increase with your help and cutting back on our city expenses and staff has allowed us to keep our heads above water and not give in to our reserve funds. But just when we think things were going well, we get hit with a projected 50% increase in CalPERS employer contributions over the next 5 years. And facing requirements for cleaning up stormwater runoff that are estimated to cost as much as $50 million between now and 2021, and a possible $7 million a year thereafter. I do not see us being able to cut our way out of these problems. We've already cut to the bone. Maybe the Public Finance Advisory Committee can find some loose change in the city sofa, but that's not going to be enough to solve the problem. Some good news, on Monday, CalPERS announced their return on investment was 16% last year, much above their 7% projection. But they would need several more years of double-digit growth to make up for the losses during the Great Recession. We may need to renegotiate our employee contracts to require greater employee contributions toward retirement. But those will be difficult negotiations because our employees have gone for several years without any substantial salary increases. We may also have to reduce benefits, look at that, or in a most drastic, look at further layoffs of employees. With stormwater runoff funding, we have 4 not very pleasant options. First, we can establish property-related fees, which require either a 50% plus 1 vote of property owners or a 2/3 majority vote of the residents. Second, establish a community facilities district or Mellow Use district. Third, a parcel tax. Or fourth, general obligation bonds, which would cost the general fund about $2.7 million a year for the next 30 years. All of these solutions will cost taxpayers and residents more money. So standing here today, it's still too early to tell you how much these issues will cost, but we do know that there will be costs, and we need to be prepared. Right now, I don't have any solutions, only options. I do welcome the input of the Public Finance Advisory Committee helping us to explore those options. But I will look for options that inflict the least amount of pain and the most equitable to both our residents and our businesses. I will also aggressively look to grant opportunities to directly assist in solving those issues or free up other funding that can be applied to these issues.
If you're re-elected, what will be your top 3 issues to address?
Well, those have pretty much been dictated to us. I mean, we are still continuing to fight to save our redevelopment. It's one of these things like we get 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We thought we had a good settlement with the state on some significant reduction in some, we got reduced from $22 million we owed to about $2 million we owed. And then we got hit with an $11 million bill, which they say that we need to pay, which we are now contesting. We need to get those things behind us so that we can get our long-range property management plan approved by the state, which then frees us up to begin doing those great redevelopment projects we want to do on Parcel B and Washington National TOT and the marketplace on Washington Sentinel and a whole slew of other things. We need to also protect our parking structures. So we have a lot it's going to take a lot of our time. We continue to look at our finance. I mean, we're not out of the woods. So these 2 issues that you look at with stormwater runoff and also CalPERS are things that are facing us. We need to be aggressive in looking at those kinds of issues as well. So those are, I think, some of the main things we're continuing to do. But I think we're headed in a good direction. We've been rated as one of the better cities in Los Angeles County, not only to live in and for work opportunities. So we want to continue to do that. And I guess one of the other things I want to look at in a broader sense is our whole involvement. I really want us to be working in concert with the school district and we've got great things going on with the liaison committee that's been formed to find ways to be able to work together. And I've personally been interested in, we have great nonprofits that are located here in Culver City. I've been working with the Chamber and Antioch University on bringing those nonprofits together so that they can share information with each other and we can work together. We're going to be doing a nonprofit volunteer day at the high school So we get high school kids involved in community service and doing those kinds of activities. So I think just overall, the third thing I'm interested in is increasing our citizen participation, our involvement with the school district, and all of that leading toward us being prepared as we go into our centennial that will be 2016-2017.
Thank you. What is your position on combining elections, both state and local?
I go back and forth on this, okay? I don't have a firm position on it, and I listen to the arguments of both sides. I mean, let's face it, that first of all, thank God we didn't have a runoff in the state assembly race, or we would have had 6 elections in 9 months here in Culver City, which is a bit of fatigue. When you look at each of the elections, the special election for the state senate, the school board election, the special election for the state assembly, our election for city council, and then the primary in June, all of those elections. Well, the turnout in the first one was 5.5%. Good news on the school district, guys, was between 14 and 15% that you had for that, which has sort of set a record so far. The special election for the assembly was 7.5% turnout. So you say to yourself, we go to all this trouble to be able to hold these elections and get so few people to participate. Why don't we combine these elections to overdo or get rid of the fatigue that happens, save money as a result of this as well to do that. So there's good arguments to be made. The other argument, though, that's made is that if you combine it with a primary election for governor or for president or something like that, then you get a lot of people voting who only care about those issues and really don't pay attention to what's going on at the local level. And from a candidate's perspective, it becomes much more expensive because I know now basically we get about 5,000 people to vote in a city council election. If I've got a primary election or whatever, I probably double that amount. That means my mailing costs are double, all of my printing costs are double, and everything else that I have to do. So it makes these elections more expensive. What I would like to see us do is I'd like to see us explore more of the mail ballots, being able to do that. Here's the ridiculousness of it. On the school board election, which was held by the county, and the county did, we had 2 polling places across the street from each other on Overland. We had Julie Dixon Library and Rotary Plaza. People from Blair Hills had to drive to Rotary Plaza and Overland to vote, and then there was a voting place across the street at the Julian Dixon Library for people on the West End. So that makes no sense at all, and it's not convenient for people to do it. So I'd like to see us look at, first of all, exploring doing mail ballot. But as far as combining elections, I go back and forth.
Next question is, how can the city lessen its reliance on sales tax, which currently accounts for 30% of the revenue?
Well, that's a good point too. We could do a little bit more on trying to go after grants that are available. Look at outside, do more on. I'm a big proponent of public-private partnership funding, and one of the reasons I ran 2 years ago was because there still seems to be this attitude of the city, either the city has to pay for it, or the city doesn't have money to pay for it, so we can't do it. And they don't tend to look at what can we do in partnership with business, with foundations, with federal funding, state funding, those kind of things. So that's one area, but that's not going to make up for the difference in percentages that we have from sales tax. The economy returning, property values are going to go up. We are going to see more funding that's going to come as a result of that. But the biggest thing that would be able to help us is some replacement on the state level for redevelopment. Something that allows us to be able to retain that tax increment within a particular area and be able to apply it for different programs. So one of the things that our role as part of this whole thing in saving our redevelopment projects is working with the state legislature to try to craft what is going to be the son of redevelopment afterwards and how much of that can benefit Culver City. If it's just to assist it with blighted areas, we don't have much of that, so we're not going to benefit. If it's going to deal with affordable housing, that's a plus, and we can make use of that. If it's going to allow for the creation of jobs, say, then that's really going to help us because we can then use that to create and stimulate business activity that will result in jobs.
Now, would you care to elaborate on the answers of the approved disagreement questions that were sent earlier? I'll review them. There were 7 of them.
I have to. So
Okay, then go.
I'll just go with it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So as politicians hate to be put in yes/no boxes, I send mine as a PDF file, hoping that you couldn't separate it out, but I understand you just tally them anyway. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. First of all, with respect to, you got to put these in context. I mean, I have a certain philosophical approach, certain things I may support in terms of policies or a philosophy, but I'm guided by these 4 principles. First, don't address a problem that doesn't exist. Second, if a problem exists, government regulation may not be the first or best way to address it. Third, if government involvement is needed, is it better handled at the county, state, or federal level? Fourth, if local government, for example, Culver City, goes it alone, are we exposing ourselves to costly legal action? So with that in mind, here's my responses to it. Yes, I do support living wage ordinance, but in certain parts of the country where it's needed, in certain job classification. I've not seen it be a problem here in Culver City. So at this point, I don't think there's any need for us to be able to address it. I put that in the first category. Don't address a problem that doesn't exist. Second, city financing of affordable housing from the general fund. I disapprove of that. We can't afford that out of the general fund. What we need is the state to figure out how to be able to assist us, like I mentioned, with redevelopment activities to be able to pay for affordable housing. Third, local city legislation on fracking. I approve it. Well, you need to know that within the city, and again, it's in the context, the city is redoing its oil drilling ordinance. And within the oil drilling ordinance, we will be discussing fracking to the extent that we are allowed by law to be able to regulate. So the answer to the question is yes, it will be in what is being brought to the council. But as far as the banning of fracking, I believe it's best handled at the state level. Also, I think if we were to go it alone in Culver City, we'd be facing a big blocking lawsuit, which we can't afford. So I'd rather see this handled at the state level. And Senator Holly Mitchell is going to reintroduce a moratorium bill. A local ban on smoking in multifamily units. I approve of that in the fact that landlords and business owners and building owners have already come to us and requested that we consider placing a ban on it. Because smoking within units creates decreases their property value and increases their costs when a tenant moves out and they have to clean the walls and replace the carpet and everything else to do. But what I would support would be for the city to establish some guidelines, which could include banning it, but allowing each individual building owner to be able to establish what they think works best to be able to restrict secondhand smoke. Local gun ordinance. I just say I support all kinds of things, background checks, assault weapons, all that stuff is best handled at the federal level. And I support us joining, and we joined Mayors Against Illegal Guns, but I support that.
You now have your 1-minute closing statement.
So Harry Culver envisioned a town that would be a good place for families to live and work. Remarkably, nearly 100 years later, that's what we have. Safe, clean neighborhoods, great schools, thriving businesses and creative startups, a revitalized downtown, and responsive public services. Our success has not happened by chance, but by creating a balance between the protection of our neighborhoods and the growth of our businesses. And that has involved a close partnership between the city and the chamber. Look no further than your help in passing the half-cent sales tax, which along with reducing expenses has maintained our financial well-being. We were recently rated the 3rd best city in the county for municipal finance, governance, and transparency. We've made good progress, but we faced many challenges, such as gaining control of our redevelopment projects and addressing parking and traffic issues. Experience is important, and I have learned much in the past 2 years. I would appreciate your support so I can continue.